Good afternoon. My name is Josh Dahan, and welcome to SAP Concur Fusion. We have a very exciting session today as we are going to be discussing AI in the public sector. With me today, I have Denise Tucker of Los Alamos Laboratory and our very own functional subject matter expert, Phil Bunnell. So, for this session, we are going to take a first-hand look at how Los Alamos, a highly decorated leader in the federal lab community, has begun to adopt AI so far. We will then take a look at what they have planned coming up for 2026. From that point, we'll discuss any challenges they may have, and then we'll go into lessons learned, and we'll conclude by talking about how they plan to measure the successes of AI in their organization. So with that, we have a lot to unpack, but first, Phil, would you mind doing a brief introduction?
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Hi, everyone. Phil Bunnell. I am a solutions advisor here with Concur. And as Josh said, I act as like a functional expert within the Concur solutions. But within my role, I work a lot with our customers on a daily basis, understanding their business challenges and outcomes they're looking to achieve, and work with them through our solutions to make that happen. And prior to being at Concur, I've been a long-time Concur customer as well and have implemented Concur, and hopefully I can bring any of that knowledge to the discussion here today.
That's awesome. Thank you very much, Phil. And Denise, tell me a little bit about your lab and a little bit about yourself.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Denise Tucker. I'm from Los Alamos National Laboratory. The lab is located in northern New Mexico. We were originally founded as part of the Manhattan Project during World War II. To build the first nuclear weapons. Today, the lab conducts research in all different sciences, including how AI can help with scientific and business operational challenges. We implemented Concur back in 2007. We've seen many changes over the years, and we support 17,000 employees, 7,500 active travelers, 29,000 expense reports annually. Our footprint includes Concur Travel and Expense Professional, Request, Expense It, Verify, as well as Cognos reporting.
Wow. So that's a lot of moving pieces. Do you guys follow any sort of regulations with that?
We follow the federal travel regulations. Our policy is based on the federal travel regulations, but those can always be changed or are interpreted in different ways. So we've built our policy internally.
Wow. I'm no expert on the FTR, but I have heard that's quite the read. And I would imagine with that comes some challenges as well. So with that being said, where does your lab stand so far with AI?
So in 2024, we started looking at different things that Concur offered to help make the expense report easier for the travelers, more efficient for our travel office, but not adding any complexity to our process. We landed on Expense It and Verify, which we implemented in October of 2024. We turned on Expense It, and we've seen an increase in our first pass approval rates of 11%, which is huge for us, but we'd really like to see a higher adoption rate. Our adoption rate is about 11% as well, and we're hoping that with more adoption, that can be even a greater approval rate. With the Verify, it took us about 6 months to implement from the time we started the configuration to the time we did the business process change in order to really leverage the functionality of Verify. We've seen a huge increase in our auto approval rate, and that's really due to car rentals. Before, we weren't able to auto approve any car rentals because of the additional charges that could happen, like GPS or toll charges. Now with Verify, it can quickly check for those, and if it finds those, it goes on the Verify queue. If it doesn't, then it can be looked at for auto approval if there's no other issues, which has been huge for us. And it also decreased our travel labor hours by 6%, as well as our cycle time improvement. And this is really the time to submit to the time to pay. And this is due to Verify, but that's only with the last 6 months of FY25. So really hoping that these numbers increase significantly in FY26.
Yeah, absolutely. And these numbers look fantastic. Phil, do these numbers surprise you at all?
No, not really. I mean, they're great numbers, like you said, and to see that you're measuring this, Denise, is the big piece of this, right? We all know AI can do things easier, automate things and make things faster, what have you, but be able to put actual measurements behind it is huge. And where we see a lot of customers taking this too is looking at these improvements, but also starting to look more at like the hard dollar savings within this to see, are the administrative costs down, or maybe not even the cost down, but those people are now able to focus on more value add functions within their role. Instead of looking at, say, every single receipt that's coming through the system, they're focusing on the potential issues, not every compliant receipt that comes through. But with this, are there less resources needed at the end of the quarter, end of the year to just finish off those processes? But also, measuring is the overall reduction on the cost of processing an expense report. How much time, which you have some in here with those travel labor hours and the cycle time improvements, but realizing that it's taking less effort on the traveler themselves to get that submitted and less effort on the admins as well, and we have some organizations that are putting more hard dollar savings on that. So I think these are great results, and then I think there's even more areas you can start to take this to.
Absolutely. I mean, these numbers are so encouraging. So I'd imagine your lab wants to build on that. What do you have planned for 2026?
So first off, we've been looking at the request assistant. We really want to get more cost clarity for what the trip will actually cost. Today, we do kind of an average trip cost of this for a domestic trip. But in the future, we're really hoping that the request assistant will provide the airfare, the car rental, the hotel, as well as we're including the new travel allowance feature, so that it will also include the per diem amounts. So the traveler, the manager, and the budget staff are all able to see a full estimate of their trip and budget accordingly.
Gotcha. So question for you, Phil, if you wouldn't mind. As we kind of go through this, would you mind helping explain the difference between Joule and WalkMe?
Yeah, sure. So these two different tools, well, you're asking me the difference to start out. They are the same in that they are great for helping travelers or those doing expense reports, just making things easier for them. And that's the whole purpose behind this, right? But if we start with Joule, this is the conversational co-pilot that really understands the overall business context within your organization and helps get things done through conversation and automation, whereas WalkMe helps bring more proactive tools and on-screen guidance that really helps users complete their tasks accurately by walking them through each step. It's not just a clever name, WalkMe, it is actually walking through different steps within the system in real time too. So if you think about it, Joule, it's conversational. I need to book a trip from New York to New Orleans, and getting results from that on the flights or hotels that are available and that they're compliant, and just really automating that process just through conversation. Where is, if we think about it from a WalkMe perspective, it's I log into Concur, here's where you book your trip. Here's where you input your destination. It's guiding the travelers through this. Here's your available flights. Here's are the flights that are not compliant or better yet, compliant. And here's where you input your frequent flyer program or your TSA pre-check number. It gives you a lot more options to walk through the travelers, all the various steps that they could do, where Joule is more just that quick conversational, let me get the answer I need or get the process done that I need to get done.
I understand.
And that's why we're really working at implementing Joule and WalkMe together, so that they can ask the questions through the chatbot and then get guided through the process. One of the examples I had was the report validation. So Joule offers a report validation feature, but then it can say, hey, you have a problem with your hotel, and then WalkMe can help them itemize it.
Oh, that's awesome. And what a creative use of that tech stack. Phil, question for you. Is that something that you're seeing? Is it becoming more common in the industry to see these two types of tech stacks used together?
Yeah, and it's really up to the organization themselves, right? On what they're trying to accomplish. The level of knowledge is the wrong word, but the level they have within their employees and their travelers on how well versed they are, how complicated they can make things sometimes, right? It depends on who you're supporting. But yes, I think we see more and more of utilizing multiple tech stacks to satisfy the end user, because that's really, we want to make it easier for them, but also keep things compliant at the same time, right? So it's understanding that audience, but you're always going to have different types of people that understand the system and they just want to get things done. Joule might be the best bet for them sometimes, just to say, hey, this is what I need, help me get this. Where others, want a full process but need a little guidance through that, and that's where WalkMe can really help out. So they work hand in hand to feed different audiences as well.
I understand. And I do love the idea of pairing these two tools together. So I can see how that would provide multiple points of contact as a traveler navigates the system. So with that, I'd imagine there could be some challenges that come with it as you introduce this tech stack. What do you anticipate?
So the biggest thing is the legal and cybersecurity review for our governance controls. So when we wanted to implement Expense It and Verify back in 24, it took about 6 months from the time we started talking to the time we were able to turn on Expense It and start the configuration for Verify. We are looking at about the same for Joule, probably a little bit longer, really because Joule is across all SAP products, or I think most SAP products. So we're working with counterparts in our procurement organization and finance to make sure that we're setting up Joule correctly with the BTP. The other thing, we want to make sure that there's role-based access controls. And then the AI outputs align with our travel policy. That's one thing that we're not seeing a lot in what's coming out, and I'm hoping we learn more about at the conference. But we really want to see that as we ask it a question, that it's going to be aligned with our policy. In order for us to test it, we're planning a phased deployment strategy where we're going to turn it on in our test environment. We have a list of our frequently asked questions from our travelers that we're gonna ask it and see how it returns, and hope that it returns correctly. If not, we'll be contacting Concur to ask them to fix it. And then internally, we've also set up annual training. So we have annual, basically AI fundamentals training that goes over kind of the guide rails for how to ask a question. What's the safety of using AI? Make sure you double check AI. It's still a computer, right? You're the human behind it. Make sure you double check what it's telling you. And then we recently introduced AI days, is what we called it, and they're workshops that are more specific for each different AI tool we have at Lanel. So they're going through Copilot and ChatGPT, and this year we're going to start talking about Expense It to try to leverage that to get more usage of Expense It at Lanel.
Wow, okay. Phil, is there anything you would do differently?
Not necessarily differently. I think just to emphasize what Denise is saying here, so many organizations have internal process when it comes to legal matters and cybersecurity especially, right? Yeah. And even more so now with the onset of AI over the last couple of years. So if you're going to be bringing in any AI solution, we're talking about Concur, but anywhere in the organization, right, the advice is have a good understanding of those teams and processes within your organization, because it's going to be a vital part and there is a lot of focus on it. But I think, Denise, you're going down the right path with this, and yeah, your AI outputs, you want them to align with your travel policy, right? If somebody says, hey, how much can I spend on dinner with a customer, you want the right answer, right? And that's, where a lot of this is going with Joule and other functions as well. But again, just having that understanding internally, so it just sets you up for success. You mentioned, Joule, again, working across SAP solutions. So if you have other SAP solutions, understanding that impact, if you're just doing that with Concur, or you're doing it with Ariba, S4, whatever the case is, but just have that understanding. And, one of the points here too is, when you're deploying AI, again, it doesn't necessarily just have to be Concur, it could be any AI that you're putting out there. It's not just this quick implementation. It can be if you understand these processes and what it's going to take internally. But what we see, in the current state that we're in is you have to understand those processes. I'm just keep saying the same thing, but it's understanding that so you can have a quicker implementation, because it's important. There's a lot of focus on the AI in any organization these days.
Absolutely. So Denise, absolutely comprehensive plan. So once your plans are in place though, how do you plan on measuring the success of AI?
So we really want to focus on finding out from the customer how they feel about how AI is working for them.
Sure.
So we're planning on launching a customer satisfaction survey this spring to get their feedback, so that we can use it to guide our future enhancements and where we take Concur next. Whether the tools we add, how we configure or modify our configuration of Concur, as well as measuring the impact of our tools. Is how is it working, and then having the survey now, and then having another survey. And I don't think we've quite decided. It's either going to be 6 months or a year from now, and I think that will really depend on when we get Joule launched at Lanel. So we'll want to see how that's working, to really get more feedback from them.
I understand. Phil, any other thoughts on how they can help survey their user base?
Yeah, just thinking about what you're saying, it reminds me of a story, or it's something that I see on a regular basis. I travel quite a bit on behalf of Concur and seeing our customers. And when I started with Concur, I got a backpack that has a big SAP Concur logo on it. And I really like the backpack because it's got all the little pockets for all of the stuff I travel with. But when I'm waiting in an airport, restaurant, lounge, or just waiting in line to board a plane, I get a lot of reactions from people on the backpack, and it's one of two reactions. It's they absolutely love Concur and it's saved their lives and it just makes things so much easier, or it's I absolutely hate it and I have to talk them through that a little bit. And what I find out with that is ultimately it comes down to their configuration and how their organization has configured Concur. Are they getting red flags for every single transaction they put in? And it's a cumbersome process, right? But what comes out of that is you need to understand that from your end users, from your travelers. They're the ones using this, right? But this is also where AI is coming in and taking away a lot of those challenges, and making expense reporting, dare I say, a little fun, simple. Maybe I won't say fun, but simple. But you really want to understand that from your employees, from your travelers. So, there's things like WalkMe that we've talked about that has survey capabilities where you can gather that sentiment on the overall process within Concur, or even on specific tasks. How easy was it to do your travel allowance, right? Just for an example's sake. Or when we talk about Joule and having this conversational assistant, AI is constantly learning and wants and really needs feedback. And as users interact, they can always provide that feedback within Joule. So based on the responses, there's a simple thumbs up or thumbs down based on, was that response good? But if it's for any reason a thumbs down, it's not just, oh, this wasn't a good response. You can add the context of why a response wasn't what you expected or anything of that nature, and the system learns. That's what AI does, is it constantly learns, so you can constantly provide that feedback. But to Denise's point of launching that customer satisfaction survey, we get it for everything we do these days. You buy anything online, you get the survey in your email box, right? Concur travel and expense, no different. You're servicing a lot of people within your organization with a great tool, but if it's not set up great for them, you need to know that. Otherwise, I'm gonna hear it when I'm at the airport. So.
Thank you very much, Phil. Yeah. And Denise, sounds like you guys are on the right track. So before we conclude, any thoughts or feedback for the audience?
So I would definitely start with a lessons learned. So as we started the journey of adding AI to Concur, we were trying to figure out like measurable pain points. Like, how do we measure how it's going to benefit us? And we wanted to make sure that we had those metrics set before we started using the new tools. We started with that first. Then Lanel has a strategic initiative of customer first. And so that's the other part, that doing expense it, adding Joule or Request Assistant, and WalkMe is really geared to the customer first initiative. And then last but not least, communication. You can't communicate out enough, training enough. We're really hoping WalkMe will help with communication as well as learning the tool, because that's something that we have always struggled with since we first implemented Concur, was communication and making sure that gets out to every single person, whether it's somebody, as Phil said, that wants to walk you through every step, or the ones that just, I'll go figure it out, and they go do it themselves. So you really need all of those guides and all of that communication so that you're hitting all the different types of users of Concur.
Perfect, perfect. Well, thank you very much, Denise, and thank you very much, Phil. And I want to thank everyone for joining us here today, and I hope this session was as helpful and impactful for you as it was for me, so thank you very much again. And I look forward to hearing all about your future successes next time we speak. And I want to once again thank you very much. Take care. And before you go, we'd like you to, before you watch your next session, we'd really appreciate your feedback. So please be sure to provide it below. And thank you very much, everyone. Take care.